And what's your pleasure?
From the Thomaston Place Auction Galleries in Thomaston, Maine, I'm Elizabeth McLeod with Auction Waves.
32,500, 100,000 there. Players all over the house, 400,000 on this rare piece, and 600,000, 900,000, 1 million, 1,175 once, 100,175 twice. We all good? Sold.
You can't have an outstanding auction without an outstanding auctioneer. And for more than 50 years, Maine families, New England families, and families from all over the world have turned to Kaja Veilleux to wield the gavel over an impressive and ever-changing range of important estates and unique family treasures. In this edition of Auction Waves, I'll sit down with Kaja for a candid look at how he found his place in the competitive auction world and some of the intriguing objects that he's found along the way. But first, the latest auction news. Our July antique, vintage, and designer jewelry auction drew worldwide interest from bidders in-house, over the phone, and online, with 370 exciting lots passing under the hammer. This auction offered something for every interest, with vintage and collectible watches drawing their usual strong bidding interest, along with wide-ranging assortments of rings, necklaces, and bracelets. The star of the auction was a breathtaking 18-karat gold Victorian brooch, executed in the intricate style of the Etruscan Revival by the master Italian goldsmiths of the House of Castellani. Bidding on this one-of-a-kind piece proved vigorous.
I have 1,600, now 17. I have 1,600, now 1,700. I have 1,600 once, 1,600 twice, and that rare brooch, and 1,700 if you want it. We all done at 1,600 once, 1,600 twice. Anyone for 1,700? We're all good? Once, twice, and Jasmine, you got it.
And if you missed out on our July jewelry auction, you'll find selected antique, vintage, and designer jewelry items included among the lots in our upcoming Summer Grandeur auction. This event is sure to be the highlight of the season for eager bidders representing multiple fields of collecting interest. Fine art will take the global spotlight as we present outstanding and historically significant works from members of the legendary Wyeth family, coming to us direct from the private collection of the late Linda Bean, including a remarkable pair of boldly expressionistic Maine watercolors from the earliest years of Andrew Wyeth's career. We'll also feature from the Bean estate a rare collection of tall clocks, offering collectors a chance to select the perfect statement timepiece for their living room, dining room, or entry hall. And we'll also feature a selection of extraordinary items from the estate of legendary New York philanthropist Brooke Astor. All presented for your bidding pleasure in our Summer Grandeur auction, coming up at the end of August. Previews begin Saturday, August 16th, so watch for the complete auction catalog at thomastonauction.com. I'm Elizabeth McLeod with Auction Waves. The past is never dead. It's not even past. So wrote William Faulkner, and while he was referring to the influence of past events on the present and future, his words are just as true when you consider them in the context of the objects that travel down the years to enrich and inform our own times. And as those objects drift along the eternal stream of time, they leave their mark on the generations through whose hands they pass. And for some of us, those encounters lead to a lifelong passion. Thomaston Place Auction Gallery founder, CEO, appraiser, and auctioneer Kaja Veilleux has spent a lifetime buying, selling, and most of all appreciating the objects of the past for their beauty, their workmanship, their cultural significance, and their value. And in this edition of Auction Waves, we'll sit down with Kaja to revisit some of the highlights of that distinguished career. Now, every collector I've ever known discovered their affinity for the past in childhood, so I like to begin these interviews with a simple question. What's the first old object you remember holding in your hands and thinking, wow, this is something that I would like to keep?
When I was a young man, my parents used to go to garage sales and house sales and stuff like that. And I think the first thing that I ever collected other than coins when I was 8 years old, we went to a sale over near Fairfield, Maine, and there was a brass penny bank in the shape of a lion. That was the first thing I think I ever collected as far as an object rather than not a coin.
It was somewhere to put the coins.
Somewhere to put the coins.
Yeah,
right.
and what was it that really appealed to you about that?
Well, I just like the shape of the animal, shape of the bank. I've been collecting. At one time I had one of the largest collections of penny banks in New England. Then I started collecting, and I used to go to all the auctions with my grandfather and my father, and the local ones, and that's how I learned the business. And I started buying things at auction because I worked at my grandfather's store to make money, and then I bought paintings and antiques with the stuff. And by the time I was 12 years old, I was buying and selling stuff.
Now, you mentioned that you were collecting coins when you were 8 years old, and I can relate to that because that's about the time that I started to look at my change and think, wow, look at that. It's an Indian head penny. I'm going to save that.
Yeah.
What was it about coins, let's just say, that really appealed to you? Was it the aesthetic quality? Was it the idea that they had gone through millions of other pockets before they came to you? What called out to you?
The value.
I love that. It's true.
In the artistic value, but the monetary value also, and the fact that they were made in limited quantities in some cases, and which made some rarer than others. And of course, condition was always a factor. But I basically was around 12 years old. I was a cashier at my grandfather's grocery store in Waterville, Maine. We used to get all kinds of old money turned in to pay for groceries. And so I said to my grandfather, I'd like to have, keep some of this old money. And he said, well, if you take $1 out, put $1 in, we're square. And so that's how I started collecting coins back then.
What was the most unusual coin that you pulled from circulation that way?
I was at a local grocery store one day waiting to pay, and this lady came in, was paying Mrs. Cassidy her grocery bill with a roll of uncirculated seeded $50 that I wish I still had today. But anyway, she paid Mrs. Cassidy, and I said to Mrs. Cassidy, I'd like to buy all those coins. And she said, sure. So I don't know how much it was, maybe $5. And she gave me $5 worth of $50. I gave her $5, and we were happy.
And they'd have been about 100 years old at that time.
Oh, yeah. They were like 1850s.
And they're just a roll of them sitting in somebody's drawer.
It's amazing.
You never can tell what's going to show up.
No, that roll today would be worth thousands of dollars.
So you mentioned that, certainly the financial potential of all of this was a big draw. But was there also a sense of, I have this and now I want another one? They say that when you have one item, it's one item. Two items is
three items makes it a collection.
3 items makes it a collection.
Yeah.
Where did you cross that line?
I've never stopped crossing it. I collect everything from coins to cars, so
it is kind of a way of life, isn't it?
It is. Now, at my age, at 74 years old, and even before that, it's all about the preservation of these fabulous objects that were created by mankind.
And there's another interesting point. I mean, the things that I collect, I couldn't imagine selling them because I get very attached to them. I think, it took me years to find this, and I'm going to keep it. But you have to cross the point somewhere where your house gets full and you can't get to the kitchen, and you don't want to get in that situation. What was the first item you remember selling?
First item I remember selling for any real money I bought at an auction. It was a primitive still life at a little country auction in Maine. I think I paid $200 or $300 for it, and I sold it to that's the other thing. I was at a young age, I was developing clients. And I got to know this doctor's wife who collected country antiques, and I sold it to her for $1,200.
And that was a lot of serious money in those days.
It was a lot of serious money, seeing that when I was 15 years old to 20, I worked as a picture framer and art supply salesman for $60 a week for 60 hours.
So it's almost a year's income.
Exactly.
So that is enough to get anybody motivated.
Exactly, yeah.
Did you find that there were a lot more things available to be found at that time than compared to today?
The taste changed and stuff changes, and so there's still a lot. I mean, I've been doing this for 56 years, and on Free Appraisal Day, we see vast amounts of stuff that people still have. Luckily in Maine, old Mainers keep stuff. And then people move from away to Maine, and they bring all their favorite stuff with them that they haven't sold off or given to their kids. And so eventually we see just about everything. and have seen just about everything that come through the door on Free Appraisal Day.
So it isn't exactly an infinite pit of wonderful objects, but it's pretty close to it.
It is. Maine and New England, actually. New England, I would say, totally is the treasure chest of America.
And maybe the last untouched wilderness when it comes to exploring that.
Well, it's certainly been touched. I mean, I've been pulling stuff out of here for 56 years.
Right.
And I'm not the only one. I mean, there's tons of,
right.
Other auctioneers and antique dealers and pickers and finding stuff all the time.
Do you find that the amateur pickers kind of get in the way of the professionals?
No, because I used to be one. When I first started out, I was 20 years old, and I quit my regular job, and I went and started knocking doors. And you'd go up to a door cold turkey and say, I'm looking for old antiques or old stuff, or do you have any of this, do you have any of that? And some people would shoo you off, and some people would say, come on in and get a cup of coffee, and we'll take a look at my stuff. And that's how it all started. And I did that for quite a few years. And then as you're doing that, you're also learning and hopefully making money. But I remember times when it was a choice between buying antiques or groceries, and I went with the antiques and flipped it fast enough so we could still buy groceries.
I confess to having done that myself from time to time. When I have seen something that I knew I was never going to see again. You have to kind of follow your impulse.
Well, with me, I knew the items. I wasn't taking much of a risk because I knew whatever I was buying, I could turn and make a quick profit at the time. And, when I was young, I used to work about 18 to 20 hours a day. And now I only work about 14.
So you're cutting back, kind of enjoying your leisure. That's a good thing.
Yeah.
Now, you were sort of buying and selling on a straight transaction basis. How did you translate into the auction game?
Well, it's interesting because when I was 15 years old, we were at a country auction one night with this old auctioneer in Winslow, Maine. And he got tired and he knew I was at the auctions all the time. And he stopped the auction and said, Kaja, would you come up and spell me for a minute? And so I walked up on the stage and started selling, and I've been doing it ever since for 50-something years.
Now, auctions have always been kind of an institution in Maine, maybe more so than in some other parts of the country. And they're as much a social function as they are a commercial marketplace. Did you find that social aspect of it appealed to you?
Well, they've been doing auctions since the Roman times, so it's a long-lasting career, and I find it fun to do because when I am at the podium, I'm not just trying to sell the stuff for the money. I'm trying to have people buy it so they'll take care of it. And also, when I'm selling, I try to inform people of why it's valuable, some of the history, where it came from, and anything else I can possibly tell them in that 30-second span between now and sold.
So there's definitely an educational aspect of it.
It is for me. A lot of auctioneers are more like cattle auctioneers or tobacco auctioneers.
Right.
And our clientele is very sophisticated, and they like to see the performance, basically.
Well, that brings up my next point. I mean, I come to this business from show business, and that was one of the things that attracted me to this job was that it's a way of getting into another branch of show business.
It certainly is.
And you do have to you have to entertain, inform, and entice, I guess is the 3 E's of auctioneering. Right. And from what I've noticed, we do that very well here.
Well, people, the people that come to our auctions have come, we've had clients that have been clients for 30, 40 years, and they only come to our sales. They don't go to Sotheby's, they don't go to Christie's, they're here, or summer clientele, they come to see our sales. And they don't really, from what they've told me, they don't buy anywhere else except when they come to see us at our summer sales. And so it's really interesting. We've built some amazing collections for individuals and museums, and we've reached out to a lot of places to preserve the items.
What kind of person do you think it takes to be a successful auctioneer?
To be a successful auctioneer, you have to have some severe dedication to what you do. You have to have a vast knowledge of every single type of product. You have to be willing to dedicate yourself to your trade to be really, really successful.
It isn't just a job, it's a calling.
It's a vocation.
Yeah, and you really have to throw yourself into it.
Absolutely.
It's not a job for the casual person.
Well, there are a lot of people that do it casually, but to really accomplish what I wanted to accomplish in my life, I've taken this very seriously, and anybody that works with me or around me or his clientele knows that I do.
And a big part of that is building the trust with the clientele.
Absolutely. And the biggest part of the trust, whether you're trying to buy stuff or get it on consignment or sell stuff, is that you know exactly what you're talking about and be able to stand behind that. So when you're selling from the podium, if you convey that confidence about the product you're selling and why it's valuable, then you get the money for the object.
And it's a matter of doing your homework, doing your research, checking each item, having people that perhaps are even more expert than yourself looking at that item. It's not it's a team effort, really.
We have a large team, and it's a great effort. We have, a catalog division, photography division, research people, specialists. And when we first started, I basically did everything. But now that we've grown to the size of the company that we are, it would be impossible for me to do all the aspects of it because it's so complex nowadays.
Now, you started in this business long before anybody heard of the internet. How did you do that kind of work before you could Google the information that you needed?
I never Googled anything. I just I have a fortunate photographic memory, and I never forget numbers. And the only thing I was good in school was history and math. This isn't something you can go to college for. People ask me, I was at a big convention one night with some very wealthy clients at a fundraiser, and they said, I went to Harvard, and I went here, and I went here, and they came to me and said, where did you go? I said, I went to the School of Hard Knocks, and it cost me about $3 million so far.
And that sort of education you don't get out of a book. It is something that has to be earned through practical experience.
And you also don't forget it.
No.
There
are lessons that are learned very hard and very expensively.
Yeah. But the trick is to learn your lessons, but be able to afford to learn them.
Now, we do a lot of interesting and unique things here, and one of the things that is sort of the trademark of this gallery is Free Appraisal Tuesday. And you were mentioning you were the one that invented that concept.
I started when I used to own the Senator Smith Mansion in Skowhegan, Maine. We started Appraisal Day approximately 45 years ago, before anybody else had even had the concept, as far as I know. And now everybody does it. And that's, like the Antiques Roadshow is a perfect example of a free appraisal day. Basically, only they need a whole bunch of people to know all the subjects, where when people come here, they can bring anything and I can tell them what they have.
And they're getting a much more personal experience than they would if they went to like an antiques fair or something like that.
Yes, and I did a huge appraisal fair in Chicago years ago, and they had about 20 people doing the appraisals, and I ended up being like the old man of the appraisal business because they kept being stuck on stuff and they came to me for the answers. And so that was kind of an interesting experience.
The more knowledge you have about the more subjects, I think the more successful you're going to be in life, not just in business. And I think we live in an age of specialization where people kind of, they know an awful lot about one thing and nothing at all about anything else. And I think you can't be that way in this business.
No, my whole thing about the business is to know as much as possible about everything. And because I have this wonderful natural instinct for value, it comes very, very easily to me. I mean, I'm not home studying at night or anything like that. When I was young, I used to, when all these colored catalogs came out, I would watch TV and absorb 3 Christie's, Sotheby's catalogs a night and recognize the objects and recognize the prices. And once I've seen it, that was it. So it's very helpful to have that kind of a memory. And fortunately, I still have it at 74.
That's an accomplishment in itself. So let's talk a little bit more about appraisal days and how they work. All right, let's suppose that I come to see you on a Tuesday and I bring my great-grandfather's mantle clock. I have a 1911 Seth Thomas Sonora chime clock that has been sitting on my mantle for 40 years. And I decide to bring that in, and I slide it across the table to you. What do you look at?
Well, it takes me about 30 seconds or less to know what it is, for one thing. And then I have to figure out how to give you the disappointing news of its value.
That's exactly what I expected. It keeps time, and that's all I ask of it.
But a lot of things that were valuable 20 years ago, of course, now, and then you see it on the Antiques Roadshow, have dropped in value because sadly the young people have not been enthusiastic or have been even taught American history or world history or anything like that. And of course, everything's so easy for them now. They just have to Google it on or ask Siri. And so you basically don't have to know anything except how to talk. And in the old days, you had to learn stuff.
Right.
You had to learn, you had to remember phone numbers. You had to do all this stuff. And nowadays, everything is electronic and made so easy for people that, you don't have to really know much.
That's a sad comment.
But it's true.
It's true, it is.
I was talking to David McCullough when I sponsored a lecture that Dave McCullough did at the Knox Mansion. And Dave was telling me the demise of this country is the lack of the teaching of history and geography in America. And it's certainly proven true. And that was about 10 or 12 years ago we had that discussion.
Santayana was right. Those who forget history are doomed to repeat it.
Yeah.
So that does kind of lead into another point. Just because something is old, like my clock, doesn't mean it's necessarily valuable.
Exactly.
And that's something that people miss out.
They do, and they misinterpret the word old for value. We see it all day long. I mean, sometimes we have 20 to 30 people come on free appraisal, and I'll look at, in 4 or 5 hours, I'll look at hundreds of objects. Anything, again, from coins to cars, like the other day, and weapons and toys and paintings and sculptures and a lot of jewelry. But the key thing is to have our people that come make it worthwhile for them for wherever they've traveled from.
Right.
I mean, we get people come from Canada. We get people from Europe that are on vacation. They bring stuff with them. And certainly all over New England. And we get, I don't know how many emails a day from even all over Europe, wanting to know what I think about the value of their things. And we're happy to share that information for free every Tuesday. And the emails get answered daily from everywhere.
And of course, the ultimate value of an item is what's it worth to you?
Well, that not only that, but some things have a set value. Some things have a real set value, like coins, for example. They have a set value depending on their condition and rarity. So, and they're always going to be that value. They won't go down. They only escalate in value pretty much. Whereas American furniture, that used to be the rock star or blue chip stock you'd have in your home, grandfather clocks, slant lid desks, highboys, chest on chest, oriental rugs. If you had one of each of those things in your portfolio of the wealth of your wealth, you were pretty much set. But now the whole thing has been reversed over the last 10, 12 years. And so if you have all of those things, you're not as set as you would have been 20 years ago.
Which is heartbreaking.
It is.
But it's the way the trend has gone.
Yeah, it really is. And I'm hoping people eventually realize the value of these incredibly handmade pieces of furniture that have survived famine, wars, fires, and all the natural disasters that could possibly happen to them. They've lived in houses with tons of children and animals and things like that, and they're still in beautiful working condition, and they're made out of real wood, not something from IKEA.
I like the substance of vintage things.
Yeah.
And they look like that they were made with integrity and not just shipped in a flat box, the way so much of today's furniture is.
Well, the only thing I've ever had in any of my houses that was new is the latest television and sofa. Everything else has always been periods.
I picked up my television set at the dump in Searsport in 1986. It was probably one of the first television sets in Searsport. It was from the early 50s, and I fixed it, and I'm still using it today.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh, that's funny.
So, the quality is there.
Yeah.
It's, and all it takes is a little extra effort to bring it out.
When I was a kid, we had the first television in the neighborhood in Waterville, and the neighbors used to come over as a blonde box with a sort of a semi-round screen. And I remember that so well, sitting in front of that TV watching whatever would come on at that time. Now there's millions of things to watch. So,
But it's that emotional attachment to an object that you can't get from something out of a flat box. You know, the memories that go into the heritage of it, you know, and things like that. And that's an intangible value that's still part of the value.
And the thought of a guy taking kiln-dried wood, whether it's mahogany, pine, cherry, bird's eye maple, tiger maple, whatever, and having the forethought to build a beautiful chest of drawers or a grandfather clock case or a slant lid desk with all hand tools, the hours and talent it took to do that, people just don't get it. They don't appreciate. I don't think the older people do because they have it, but the younger people, I don't think they understand the aesthetic value of these objects and the history that is tied to them. And that's one of the things that's very hard for me to grasp now, having been in the business for so many years and handled, hundreds of millions of dollars worth of stuff. We try to educate people so they know what they're buying, and that's all you can do.
Well, I mean, one thing that I like to keep in mind is that, Bitcoins may lose their value, but an antique chair you can always sit in.
Right. Well, no, I never trust anything electronic.
Yeah, exactly.
I'm old school.
Yeah.
If I can't put it in my hands, I don't want to know about it.
What do you see as being the collectibles of the future? Does anything that is being made right now have the potential to become valuable as a collectible, do you think?
Oh, that's a good question. I haven't given it much thought because I'm so embedded with the history that surrounds me and every day and the things that I've collected throughout the 50, 60 years. But I don't know what I would advise people to collect other than the things that are mainstays that people can use. Wristwatches have held their value. They're still collectible, even though almost everybody has an iWatch or whatever they call that. And coins have always held their value. And now one of the things that's really grown in value is currency. Old currency is becoming very, very popular amongst the wealthy collectors. Vintage toys are still holding their value nicely. A lot of collectors, even though a lot of the old timers have passed away. And art. Art will always be valuable.
They're always making new art. It's the challenge is figuring out what of the new art is going to retain value.
Well, when I had my big gallery in Newcastle, people would say, "How do I know which painting to buy?" And I would say to them, when you look at that painting in the morning, does it bring you joy? There's no price for that. And if it brings you joy every day, then it's valuable. Whether you pay $10 or $10 million. Why buy something only because it has value in an art piece? At least for me, I like things that when I look at it, I say, oh, what a great memory, or look at the talent this guy had to be able to do this. How is that possible?
History is the version of past events that people have decided to agree upon. So argued Napoleon, but he left out an important point. History is also the artifacts that the past leaves behind as evidence of a bygone time. And while we cannot experience that past firsthand, exploring and appreciating those material objects from the past can help give us a tangible understanding of another era. In our next Auction Waves release, we'll continue our conversation with Kaja Veilleux as he shares his thoughts on where collecting and the auction business may be heading in the days to come. And before I go, just a reminder to watch for the full catalog of our upcoming Summer Grandeur auction, coming to you at the end of August, with the catalog soon appearing at thomastonauction.com. Tishri Dobson, as always, is at the piano. Dave Allen takes us from here to there on the guitar, and the entire program is produced, written, and edited for you by yours truly, Elizabeth McLeod, wishing you smooth sailing and happy bidding for Auction Waves. Auction Waves is an exclusive presentation of Thomaston Place Auction Galleries in Thomaston, Maine.